go to the bank again and get some more fives? Really? Were they giving it away for trick or treat? Or just grandkids? Good morning. How's everybody this morning? Yeah, I've been working extra hard here the last couple of days. I went to Walmart and bought the Halloween candy. I was only gonna get one of them 50 bags. All right. Are we ready to get started here? Mr. Bickerstaff, would you open us a word of prayer, sir? Amen. Hallelujah. Good to see you, sir. What was that tune, Larry? No, we are not going to go a reenactment of that. All right. Now, I keep getting asked if we still in the desert or not, right? Now, how long was them people supposed to be in the desert? No, how long were they supposed to be in the desert? When God said, okay, y'all don't want to act right, so how long were they supposed to be? 40 years, all right. Now, well, that's what we're going to start with today. We're going to look at the timeline, all right? We're going to look at the timeline to begin with, then we'll get into what we're supposed to be doing, all right? All right. Now, the timeline to have a better understanding of when all these events are taking place. Let's first look back there when Moses was first called by God at the burning bush, all right? Y'all remember that part, right? Yeah. Now, that was back in Exodus in chapter 3. And this Thompson Chain Reference Bible that James told my wife that would be what I needed for a birthday present one time, right? Okay. Now, yeah. Yeah. But anyway, it gives me a date of 1491 BC. All right? Now, anybody else got dates in their Bibles in the margin there that kind of gives you an understanding of that? All right. Now, this 1491 BC, all right? It holds that same date all the way through the book of Exodus, and in Numbers there in chapter 1 and verse 1, it tells us, and the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of the congregation, on the first day of the second month in the second year after where they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, all right, and this is where God tells Moses to number the people, right? Are y'all still with me? So the children of Israel at that time had been out of Egypt for a year and a month, and my Bible still shows the date to be about 1490 and not the 1491. So we had 1 year for their timeline, right? Okay. Now in Numbers 14, The spies have returned from their searching out of the land of Canaan, and they have given their report, and the people have murmured, right? All right. Now, this event is still in that date of the 4090 BC, still in that second year coming out of the children of Israel coming out of the land of Egypt, right? Okay. Now, in number 16, that's the rebellion of Korah. Y'all remember that? All right. And the date there is given is 1471. 1471, it's got a little question mark out there, right? So they're taking one of them guesstimates, one of them educated guesses at it, all right? So this event took place some 19 years later. And that's about halfway through their 40 years that they're supposed to be wandering around the wilderness, right? Okay? And that's what the Bible are. So our beginning in number 17, for our timeline, it's still around 1471 BC, and the children of Israel have wandered around the wilderness for 20 years. So that age-old question, if we're going to get out of the desert today, is no. We got another 20 years to go, okay? Well, I was right behind y'all, okay? So let's look here at number 17. We're going, huh? Now we had Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, right? They had conspired against Moses, and they wanted to take over the control of the children of Israel. They wanted to be the new rulers, right? Now this is 20 years later, right? Okay. Now, I pondered of what they were out to accomplish here. I mean, were they going to make things better for the children of Israel, or are they just out there looking out for themselves? Everything's got to stop somewhere, right? Yeah. I mean, did they think they could supersede that of what God had commanded? Do better for this generation of the children of Israel? All right? They got another 20 years to water in the... I mean, what did they expect to get out of it? Right? Did they think they could lead the people back to Egypt? I mean, that's what they murmured for time and time again, right? Now, if anybody's going to do any murmuring, it's going to be that second generation that's murmuring, right? I mean, if you take half of 40 and you get to 20, then you go and figure about half of that generation has already died out, right? Okay. Now, God put down Korah's rebellion there. He had the ground swallow them up, and they was gone in just one moment, right? Huh? Now, Moses wasn't the one with the power. Can you believe that? Moses wasn't the one that was actually doing the leading. Moses was only being obedient to his God, for his God was the one that was in total control. And you know that still works today for man, no matter what man might say. Huh? You know, devil's pretty smart, right? This old world don't want to the world to think that there is a devil, right? You know? It's kind of hard to fight something that you don't believe actually exists, right? That's the best, attack that anybody can come up with. Now, Korah had not wanted just the political power, but also the religious. And he had those 250 would-be priests to carry the censers and burn the incense therein, right? Of which God consumed them with a fire, right? Now, this seems as it would have been the end of the rebellion, but what did the people do? Now, remember, we got at least half of a new generation of people. And the next day, they murmured, didn't they? They murmured against Moses and Aaron. They accused them, saying, "Ye have killed the people of the Lord," right? The children of Israel, once again, are questioning God's sovereignty. And for the fourth time, God sought to kill them all. And God sent a plague. Remember that plague? People started dying. Moses commanded Aaron to take a censer, put fire in, the incense in it. And Aaron did this, and then he stood between the dead and the living. And then God stayed the plague, right? That day, 14,700 people died for no reason than their disobedience to their God. And that's along with Korah and all of his that was in his rebellion, right? Now it appears that there are still questions of who's in charge, of whose God has put in place over his people. So God has a plan, you know? And he will give a sign to whom he wants to have as his priest. He's kind of already proven that Moses is going to be the political leader, right? No matter what them Democrats say. so let's look here in Numbers 17. Is that where we're at? 17, and let's look in verses 1 to 4. Y'all still with me? And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and take of every one of them a rod, according to the house of their fathers, of all their princes, according to the house of their fathers, 12 rods. Write thou every man's name on his rod, and thou shalt write Aaron's name upon the rod of Levi. From one rod shall the head of the houses of their fathers. And they shall lay them up in the tabernacle of the congregation before the testimony, where I will meet with you. Right? God's got a plan, right? A very simple plan for God, but something that's totally impossible for man, isn't it? So there can be no trickery or foolery by man. 12 rods are to be taken. Just a plain staff of wood from every tribe of the tribe leaders, and with their names written on it, right? Now them, the children of Israel, they having the flocks of the herds, then they would have rods that would be easy to come by, right? You would kind of think so, right? I would think most men would have one. It seems kind of reasonable at that day and time. Now, for the tribe of Levi, Aaron's was to be written on that rod, okay? The 12 rods were to put, would be collected and put inside the tabernacle and placed before the ark. Now, there's only one person go in there and do that, right, at that time. Okay, the high priest. And then God says, and that's where I will meet you with you. In other words, priest's going to put it in there and God's going to take it from there. Let's look at verse number 5. And it shall come to pass that the man's rod, whom I shall choose, shall blossom, and it will make to cease from me the murmurings of the children of Israel, whereby they murmur against you. So these 12 rods that represent the 12 tribes of Israel, God is going to only choose one, and the one that God chooses, it's going to blossom. Now, do y'all know what a rod is? A stick? Huh? Now, a lot of people think, like a shepherd's hook. You think that's it? Because, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me, right? So it seems like they got two sticks, right? Now, I used to have to buy shepherd hooks at work. But I wasn't no shepherd, okay? But we had to open those electrical panels up, and we had this long staff that had a hook on the end of it. In case that guy over there working on it, somebody else could grab a hold of it and pull them off in case they got connected to it. Because that 480 volts, it make your muscles contract, where it makes you hold on to it, and it won't let you let go, okay? But for a rod, different purpose. And I just happen to have one. Now, what does this look like it's for? An old man. It fits me pretty good. Well, I made it. Yeah. You know why it's round like that on the top and everything? Because it fits my hand really good. But it could bop somebody's head in really well. In other words, a shepherd's shack was used for, getting the fish, get the sheep going on, pulling them back if they had to or something like that. But rod, okay, that was something for protection. It was shorter, all right? And it would be made, where maybe they had to, lion, tiger, or bear come up. Protection, right? Now, this right here comes from actually the men's fishing trip. It actually comes from James and Belinda's yards when they tore up their shrubs. You brought that out there for the firewood, and I whittled it down into this and everything. And when I get old, maybe I'll use it for an old man's stick. But there's a difference between a rod and a shepherd's staff, okay? So anyway, they take. All right, can you imagine that thing? Leaves coming up off of it and everything? Huh? Well, that's what God said was going to happen to the one that he would choose, right? Now, this was God's plan to silence the people, stop their murmuring, start their whining and complaining about the things that God had already set in place. All right? Because when they murmured and whined against Moses and Aaron, who were they really whining and murmuring against? God himself, right? Let's look at verses 6 and 9, all right? And Moses spake unto the children of Israel, and every one of their princes gave him a rod apiece, for each prince one according to their fathers' houses, even 12 rods, and the rods of Aaron was among their rods. And Moses laid up the rods before the Lord of the tabernacle of witness. So I guess maybe Moses was allowed in there, right? Or maybe he just won in command, had the authority of, and he delegated to the high priest to put it in there, right? Anyway, they got put inside the tabernacle there before the altar. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron for the house of Levi was budded, and brought forth buds and blossoms, all right, bloom blossoms, and yielded almonds. All right? It went through the 3 stages, right? In other words, you could pick almonds off of it and eat it at a time. It done gave fruit. And Moses brought out all the rods from before the Lord upon to the children of Israel, and they looked, and every one man his rod. Now Moses said he took the 12 rods, one from every tribe, and Aaron's was included in that. And then Moses, he laid those rods in the tabernacle. Now these rods were nothing but what? Dead sticks of wood, right? Nothing special about them. They were all cut of a small tree or cut off of a large tree. But the next day, Aaron's rod, his dead stick, it went through the process of a tree, right? It had life in it at that time somehow. It budded, it blossomed, and it brought forth fruit. Now, just the day before, these 12 rods shared in the same things. They were once all from a living tree. They all at one time had a life, and now they were nothing but dead sticks. They had no roots. They had nothing to gain any nourishments. They had no leaves for the process there of the photosynthesis, right? That's how plants live, right? But God gave Aaron's rod life. I mean, God can only bring life where there's death, right? God here is giving a sign of his son to come. Jesus will come as a man, live as a man, and he's going to die as a man. But Jesus didn't stay dead, did he? He rose on that third day as God, but still as man. You remember Brother Stewart? Huh? Brother Stewart stated that we have now a man up in heaven, a God-man that sits at the throne of God and intercedes on our behalf, right? Isn't it always good to have somebody take up for you, whether you deserve it or not? Now Moses brings the 12 rods out of the tabernacle, and the tribal leaders there the children of Israel, they take their rods, and then with their names have been written on it, you know, and then they look at it. All right? It would look the same as when they had given it to Moses. But could you imagine Aaron looking at his rod? Could you imagine everybody else looking at Aaron's rod, right? They would have seen the difference, and they would have known of whom God has chosen as his priest, right? Verses 10, 11. The Lord said unto Moses, bring Aaron's rod again before the testimony, to be kept for a token against the rebels, and they shall quiet take away their murmurings from me, that they die not. And Moses did so, as the Lord commanded him, so did he. God shut down this rebellion of the people, both politically and religious, right? Now God is the one with the power. He's the one that's in charge. Moses is his chosen leader over the people, and Aaron and his sons are to be God's priest and no one else. Huh? But, just in case in times to come, if somebody was to get the idea that they'd be better at running things and take over where God has set things in place, God tells Moses to keep Aaron's rod. Now, where do they keep that thing? Ark of the Covenant, right? He said, put it before the ark. If somebody was thinking of rebelling just after, just mention that of Aaron's rod, and it would be brought back to memory. And they had it there. They could bring it out. It still blossomed and bloomed, right? And it still had the fruit on it, right? All they had to do is there. I think they'd think back of Korah, right? And all the death that come there. They would think back of them, how they were consumed, and they think about those 200 priests, how they were consumed with the fire. They would remember how their censers was taken, and they'd look at that brass plates around the brazen altar and understand of what they're thinking was really a bad idea, right? So Moses did as the Lord commanded him to do, and the children of Israel, they've been through a lot, hadn't they? Right? They've been through a lot. They had witnessed a lot, right? I like what Pam said. No, it was Pat said. I'd believe and I'd get right with God, right? Isn't that what you said? So what are the people here? They've been in there 20 years. What are they supposed to do now, right? Verses 12 and 13. And the children of Israel spake unto Moses, saying, behold, we die, we perish, we all perish. Whosoever cometh anything near unto the tabernacle of the Lord shall die, and we shall be consumed with dying. Now, do you think that the children of Israel now share a guilty conscience? I mean, they for sure share a guilty fear, don't they? Nothing has changed as it had been before. All things are still as God had first set in place, aren't they? Right? God hasn't changed anything. God has instructed of who to have art. And all are to play their role, but the people, they fear for their lives, and they question, are they all going to die also? Now, my thinking, their fear is all based on them and their disobedience to their God, right? Now, in chapter 18, God has more instructions for this time, and it's for Aaron and his son. So let's look at verses 1 of chapter 18. And the Lord said to Aaron, Thou and thy sons and thy father's house with thee shall bear the iniquity of the sanctuary, and thou and thy sons shall bear thee the iniquity of the priesthood. Okay? So God is speaking to Aaron at this time. Now the rebellion of Korah, the 250 would-be priests, they've been put down, and God again states only that Aaron and his sons, all right, after them would be the priests of the children of Israel. It says they would bear the iniquities of the sanctuary. In other words, they would do the work there of the sanctuary. Now, that would be the giving of the offerings, all right, and the sacrifices, all right. They would take them in there, and they would be the one offer them to God. Take them from the people and offer them to God. All right. Now, the upkeep and the running of the tabernacle would also be their duties too, right? I mean, the candlestick had to be kept burning, didn't it? Somebody got to put the oil in there and light it up, right? What about the showbread, all right? Somebody had to bake it and put it out, right? The golden altar of incense had to be tended to, kept burning, incense put on it and everything. Also, they would bear the iniquity of the priesthood. They were to act as the intercessors, the go-betweens for the children of Israel and God. Without them acting as the high priest and the priest there, how could their sins be forgiven? Or at least this time, just covered over, right? God's showing there's got to be a Savior, right? This is verses 2 and 3. And thy brethren also of the tribe of Levi, and the tribe of their fathers, bring thou with thee, that they may be joined unto thee, and minister unto thee. But thou and thy sons with thee shall minister before the tabernacle of witness. And thou shalt keep thy charge, and the charge of the tabernacle. Only they shall not come nigh the vessels of the sanctuary and the altar, that neither they nor ye also die. Now the tabernacle itself, its articles inside and out, its courts would be too much for Aaron and his sons, all right, to handle by themselves, right? How many are there? You got Aaron? How many sons you got? You got 2 left, right? He had 4. Now he's down to 2. I mean, you think about the size of it. Tabernacle and everything it had, and we talked about the weight of it and everything. I mean, when it come moving time, those 3 people couldn't pack up the tabernacle, transport, and then set it back up again, right? It'd be like setting up the Taj Mahal that Linda has, right? It takes 4 or 5 to do that. Now, God had given the duties to the sons of Levi, but they were not of the sons of Aaron, were they? God had given the Kohathites a charge of what? Kohathites? Y'all remember? Man. Here, catch it, Larry. Hold this one. But remember the Kohathites? They were to take care of the holy things, candlesticks, the ark, the table of the showbread, all right, the altars, and then you had the Gershonites, right? Now, they had the duties of the curtains and the coverings, those things that went over the tabernacle. And then they had the Merarites, right? What did they take care of? All the big stuff. They're the only one that got the oxen in the carts, right? They took care of the framework, the boards and the bars and the pillars and the sockets. Now, they all had duties of the tabernacle, but it was all under the supervision of a priest, right? Okay, Eleazar, right? He was the one to go in there. They could not minister in the tabernacle, and if they tried, they would die, right? Verses 4 and 5. And they shall be joined unto thee, and keep the charge of the tabernacle of the congregation for all the service of the tabernacle, and the stranger shall not come nigh unto you. And if you keep the charge of the sanctuary and the charge of the altar, that there be no wrath any more upon the children of Israel. Now Aaron and his sons, along with the tribe there of the Levi, were given the duties, all right, the duties for the service of the priesthood and that of the tabernacle. Now, as long as they themselves kept their assigned duties with their tribes and no other stranger, and stranger would be anybody, even of the children of Israel, right? Any member outside that of the tribe of Levi, all right? If they kept the charge of the sanctuary and the altar, they'd die, right? If they tried to do that. But if they did as God commanded, then no wrath, God's anger, would not be brought down to them. You think they got it straight yet? Let's look at verses 6 and 7. And I, behold, I have taken your brethren, the Levites, from among the children of Israel, to give you they are given as a gift for the Lord to do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Therefore thou and thy sons with thee shall keep your priest office for everything of the altar and within the veil, and ye shall serve. And I have given your priest office unto you as a service of gift, and the stranger that comes nigh shall be put to death. Now God's speaking here, still speaking to Aaron, and God is giving a gift to Aaron. All right? Now the running of the tabernacle will require many hands, right? Now we have pastors, don't we? 2 of them, right? We have a church staff, don't we? We have trustees, we have teachers, we have sound technicians, nursery and children's workers, and we have work days, right? We have projects and we have events where everyone can be involved in some way, shape, or form, right? If you're not involved, it's because you don't want to be. You just don't come and do, right? I mean, there's much to be done, all right, to keep everything running properly. Now, Aaron, his 4 sons, all right, 4 sons, but Nadab and Abihu, they died when they offered that strange fire before the Lord, and the Lord killed them, right? Now, leaving Aaron with Eleazar, right, he was the one that was put into the charge there of the tabernacle when people would come in there to make a move and stuff of that nature. And then you had Ithamar, all right? He was the next of the son of Aaron. And with him, all right, just the 3 of them, the tabernacle would have been too much, wouldn't it? They would be the priest. They would be the one in charge over the tabernacle and especially over the alternator. Alternator? Where did I get that from? Your alternator must be going out. But they were in charge over the altar, right? They were over the alternator, the altar, and that was in with the veil there, and they would perform the offerings and the sacrifices, and they would tend to the holy things that were in the Holy of Holies. Only Aaron and his sons and Levites, all right, and them on certain occasions would be allowed in the tabernacle. And it says, any stranger one, anyone not of Levi, they would be put to death. Now God says that over and over. You think he means it? All right, let's look at verses 8 and 10. And the Lord spake unto Aaron, Behold, since I have given thee the charge of my heave offerings. Y'all remember the heave offerings? And of all the hallowed things that the children of Israel unto thee I have given them by reasons of the anointing, and to thy sons by the ordinance forever. And this shall be thine in the most holy things, reserved from the fire, from oblations of theirs, every meat offering of theirs, and every sin offering of theirs, and every trespass offering of theirs, which they shall render unto me, shall be most holy for thee and thy sons. Now the offering that the children of Israel brought to their God, God saw them as holy. Okay? They were separated from the people, the best of the best that the people had to offer. They were given to God and for God only. But God said that He's going to share a portion of His offerings with Aaron and his sons. Okay? Now, of their meat offering. Now, when they say meat offering, we know that's a grain offering, right? All right? Of their sin offerings, of their trespass offerings. That what was given to God, a portion of it would be shared with His priest. Now, God regarded His children's offerings as holy. Aaron and his sons were to do the same. He's supposed to eat them there in the most holy place, eat there in the tabernacle, and not take for granted what God had given to them. All right, now that was just a portion of those offerings that they ate inside the tabernacle, right? Let's look at verses 11 and 13. And this is thine, the heave offering, offered of their gifts, and with all the wave offerings of the children of Israel, I have given unto them, unto thee, and to thy sons and to thy daughters. All right, there's a difference between the heave offering and the wave offering, right? The heave offering was lifted up, and the wave offering was by side to side, right? All right. Now he's talking about the wave offering here. All right. Now, by statute forever, everyone that is clean in thy house shall eat of it. All of the best oil, and all of the best of the wine, and of the wheat, and the fruits of them, they shall offer unto the Lord them that I have given thee. And whatsoever is first right in the land, which thou shalt bring unto the Lord, shall be thine. Every one that is clean in thine house shall eat of it. All right. So the children of Israel were to bring their offerings, their heave offerings, and their wave offerings, the best of their oil, the best of their wine. Remember, we went through all that, and a portion of it was heaved, and a portion of it was waved, right? Now, at the harvest, at the time of the first fruits there of the fields and of the vineyards, the first grains and the fruits, anything that were harvested, they were to be offered up to their God. And here God tells Aaron, those of his house will eat of it. And they, by God's command, were to enjoy the best of the best because they worked for their Lord. That's how the priest in their house got the hope. But God does stipulate that it is only to be eaten by those that were clean. Those considered unclean for whatever reason were not to share into the holy offerings that were given to God. And we're going to talk about clean and unclean later, but right now we're just going to go with this, right? So let's look in verses 14 to 16. Everything devoted in Israel shall be thine. Everything that openeth the matrix of all flesh, which they bring unto the Lord, whether it be of men or beasts, shall be thine. Nevertheless, the firstborn of man shalt thou surely redeem. And the firstling of the unclean beast shalt thou redeem. And those that are to be redeemed from a month old shall thou redeem according to thine estimation. For the money of 5 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary, which is 20 gerards. Okay? Y'all still with me? Aren't you glad we're Baptists instead of Jewish? Now, everything means everything, right? All things devoted, all things dedicated, consecrated, all things brought to their God was to be theirs. You know, God doesn't have any need for it, does he? Kind of like our tithes and offering, but he still expects them. Now, at the last plague of Egypt, y'all remember that? The angel of death passed across the land. Death fell upon the firstborn of both man and beast, and only the houses that had the blood on the posts of the doors and the lintel, that's the only one that the angel of death passed over, right? God had spared them, and he claimed them as his own at that time, right? Now God says they are to belong to Aaron and to the priest. They are to share in God's offering. Now that of the unclean, now ask unclean, that means unacceptable to God. And it was to be redeemed, right? In other words, a price had to be paid for that, to be cleaned, and it was to be paid for by both man and beast. You kind of read that, and it for sure lets us know how we are seen in the sight of God, right? Before that of accepting his Son as Savior. Now these, both man or beast, from a month old was to be redeemed with the price of 5 shekels. And it was after the shekels of the sanctuary, which is 20 gerards. All right? Now remember when I brought that little silver coin in here? Okay. Now a shekel is about 1/10 of an ounce, 0.4 of an ounce. So 5 shekels would be like 2 ounces, right? Now how much would that be today? A troy ounce of gold is like $4,000. Troy ounce of silver is only $50. But you know, you look at the Egyptians, you know, they come from slavery, they walk around the desert, you know, you think they poor, you know, one thing. Them some rich people, most of them, because they took the spoils of Egypt with them, right? They ain't walking around no beggars. Look at verses 17 to 20, all right? Y'all getting tired of listening to me yet? But the firstling of a cow, or the firstling of a sheep, or the firstling of a goat, thou shalt not redeem. They are holy. Thou shalt sprinkle their blood upon the altar, and thou shalt burn their fat for an offering made by fire, for a sweet Savior unto the Lord. And the flesh of them shall be thine, as the wave breast and as the right shoulder are thine. All the heap offerings of the holy things which the children of Israel offer unto the Lord have I given thee, and thy sons and thy daughters with thee for a statute forever. It is a covenant of salt forever before the Lord unto thee, unto thy seed with thee. Man didn't make the clean list, did he? A cow did. Think about that, driving down the road and seeing an old cow out there, right? God considers that animal as clean, and us unclean, right? An oxen, a bull, a sheep, and a goat, they all made the clean list, right? They were considered clean and holy. No redemption required. They were acceptable for a sacrifice. Their blood could be sprinkled upon the brazen altar. All right? Remember putting the blood on the horn, on the 4 corners, right? And its fat burned. as an offering by fire. And that was a sweet Savior, and it was pleasing unto God. Now, of the tribe of Levi, its men, its women, its children, they would have been a great number of people, right? Now, they would need to be fed, and God is to provide for them. Now, of the wave offering, of the right shoulder, was go to the Levites, with all of the heave offerings being there also. This is as God has said, and He said He was going to make it a stature to stand forever. And God describes this as a covenant of salt. Now, why would He say covenant of salt? You know, salt can't be made unsalty. Huh? Now, it can be diluted down, right? You can change or alter it by adding heat to it, right? But if you put too much salt in the beans, there ain't no way of getting rid of it, right? The salt itself can't be made unsalty. So God's covenant with the tribe of Levi, their sharing in His offerings, was to last forever. Huh? So if you want to make a covenant with somebody and they say covenant of salt, you better get ready to do it forever, right? Now, God's got more to speak to Aaron and to the children about, and we're going to cover that in another lesson, right? Okay. Brother Doug, would you close us in a word of prayer, sir? Amen. We got 20 more years wandering around that desert. I don't know. We went from 2 or 3 to 17 really quick, didn't we? Why did I take my entire class off? I was wondering why it came on myself. My air conditioning went out at home.